Okay, so this is the fall semester of 2025, and we're going to do a practice interview for students. I have a room full of students that are going to be observing another student interview me, and this is just examples of how to answer some of these interview questions.
Thanks for coming in to interview with us today, Finn. I know you came in to apply for an operator position at Citgo. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. I did apply for Citgo for the operator position. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised here in South Louisiana. I graduated from Sam Houston in 2007. I started off on a pipeline maintenance crew, doing pipeline maintenance, where we would change out valves and we would work on compressor stations and maintaining compressor stations. I enrolled at McNeese in 2007 in that fall into the engineering technology program or engineering program. I graduated in 2010 with my process technology degree. After I left McNeese, I started in maintenance as a scaffold carpenter. I spent some time working turnarounds inside of Citgo. So I worked quite a bit of turnarounds before I became, I'm talking as if I was in my career. So I worked several turnarounds as a scaffold carpenter. I worked my way up from helper to lead. And then I got an opportunity to go offshore as a flowback fluid operator. So we would take flowback fluid from a well that they were reworking, like so Shell would go and they would bring Halliburton out and they would pump acid and caustic downhole to permeate the earth, you could say, and to reestablish well flow. And then we would take that flowback fluid and process it so that the system, the platform could handle the pH. Initially with the acid that we were pumping downhole, the system can't handle that acid level, so we would process that. And then I got an opportunity at LyondellBasell to work as an operator. So I started off at LyondellBasell as a bulk loader loading rail cars, and then I trained as the extruder operator, which I'm currently working at now.
Great, thank you. So, you're one of many that we're interviewing for this job. Why should we hire you over our other candidates?
I certainly meet the requirements. I think that with my education along with my experience, I not only know what your expectations are as an employee, but I know that I can fulfill those expectations and I can exceed them. I'm a very goal-oriented person. I value work ethic. So in my past, in my work history, I can honestly say that I've been late a minimal amount of times, and if I were to be late or it was because of an uncontrollable, something happened, and I'm not someone that you're going to have to worry about showing up and doing a good job or showing up at all. So I understand what the expectations are, and I value my performance. And so if you were to hire me, I could guarantee that I would be able to not only learn the process and do a good job, but hopefully I would be able to move up within the company, because that's part of my goals, personal goals.
Great, thank you. Have you taken time to look into our company, what we do here?
Yes. So part of preparing, I graduate in May. Part of preparing for this was I wanted to at least know what the facility done. So for Citgo, I went online and I looked up your mission statement and what projects y'all have been working on. I understand that y'all produce around 475,000 barrels per day of crude oil, which is just based off of sheer numbers is around the fifth largest producer in this country, which is wonderful. Also, the future, I know in the early 2000s, y'all put in a new crude vacuum unit, which has expanded the production rate. So I know that there's a lot of new things going on, and the site itself is a very large facility and has been around for a long time.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to move into some personal questions about you. Can you tell me about a time that you've ever been reprimanded at work and the thoughts that you've had, what you did about that?
Sure. Being reprimanded at work is not something that has ever been habitual. One of the things that really stands out in my mind is when I was brand new in operations offshore, there was a lot of things that were just not, I wasn't, I needed training, and some of the tasks that I were assigned, we had to be able to show up offshore and tie into the platform with our equipment. And some of that process, on the first trip offshore, being young and being full of energy, and I wanted to know what to do, but the instructions weren't as clear as they maybe needed to be for me. And so I was given a task of laying out Chixon piping that would be screwed together. And so I started working on laying the pipe out. The only problem is that I didn't have the area where I was staging the equipment roped off and barricaded off to prevent people from possibly getting into that area and hurting themselves. So about halfway through this task, my foreman approached me and was, asked me, about the barricade and asked me about the positioning of where I decided to locate our material. It was understood that I needed to be in this particular location, but I had staged the equipment next to the location where he actually wanted it, and it wasn't barricaded. So I moved everything, barricaded it off. I made everything right. All right. And what I learned from that was if I'm not exactly sure, to ask questions and to make sure that, okay, where exactly do you want me to stage the equipment? And is there anything that I need to do before staging equipment to prepare the job site?
Great, thank you. Could you tell me about a time that you've had a conflict with maybe a coworker at work and how you resolved that conflict?
Sure. So, in operations, in my experience in operations, there were multiple, you get everything going, you're tying into your equipment and you're starting to run. And then there's an issue. So several times, throughout operating offshore, there were times where we had issues arise. And one of the first things that comes to mind where we had a conflict is we were taking in flowback fluid, and we were experiencing an increase in our overboard production. And so we needed to address that issue because we didn't want to spend our carbon too quickly. So if we were draining too quickly, we would spend our carbon bed too quickly was the issue. And so we ran outside, and my first instinct was to head towards this piece of equipment. My coworker, who we're together, was heading towards a different direction, and so we both realized at that point that we were not on the same page. So we just got together, we talked about it, we came to a consensus, we agreed on the steps that we needed to take. We went outside and we were able to accomplish those tasks and fix the problem and be back inside monitoring the system. If we were to do anything different, I would say that what we learned from that particular situation is before we ever went outside, we should have had a conversation about what to do. So we were able to fix that problem.
Okay. Could you give me an example of one of your strengths and one of your weaknesses?
Sure. Does it matter which do you want me to start with, a strength or a weakness?
Yeah, go with the strength first.
Okay. I have an honest strength is I have an ability to read people, read emotional intelligence. So that would be my strength. For my weakness, I would say that I'm somewhat of a perfectionist, and I've gotten a lot better at that. When I say perfectionist, I do have a very high standard of quality of work. I was raised, again, to have work ethic and to produce quality. And in the past, as a young man, I've hyper focused on something to the point where, it was getting into maybe exceeding a deadline. If it was a project for school that I had to work on, and if it wasn't to my liking personally, then I would have trouble submitting something like that. As an adult, I've learned how to cope with that, and if it meets the deadline and it meets the standard, and the customer's happy with what I've produced, it doesn't matter what I personally believe as a standard. It's if the client is happy, if the customer's happy, and the product that I'm producing is useful and sustainable, then I'm okay with that. So I've coped with that.
That's great. I'm glad that you've found a way to cope with your weaknesses that you have, and really appreciate the aspects of your strengths as well. Now, would you be able to tell me about a time that you've experienced an emergency at work and how you responded to that emergency?
Sure. So there's been a lot of emergencies, and that's not, depending on how you define emergency. For me, anything that's abnormal in the unit can indicate an emergency. It's abnormal, I need to fix it. On this particular day, we had a dead leg on a crude line that ran through our unit, and it was supplying crude oil as a slipstream to another unit, and that particular line popped a hole. And so they're flowing about 10,000 barrels per day through this line, and it popped a hole, and there's no isolation points. So it was flooding our unit that was on a turnaround that was being there's welding going everywhere. It was flooding our unit with crude oil, and it caught fire. So immediately, I'm the closest one to a fire extinguisher that's hanging on the wall, and I'm with a group of operators. Thankfully, we all kept calm. We saw the fire initiate. It was about half the size of this room. I grabbed a fire extinguisher, pulled the pin. I followed the procedure for the fire extinguisher. I squeezed and I swept, and then my reinforcements came. I had other operators that came, and we were able to not only contain the fire to a particular area, but we were able to snuff the fire out and then keep it at bay, and we washed it so that it would not reignite.
That's great. Based off of what you've just told me, I think I know how you would respond to this question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you, would you be willing to be a part of our emergency response team?
Yes, I value safety, not only just as in day-to-day operations, but with a strong safety culture. If there's training available that would help me mitigate hazards in my unit, I'm all for it. I think that every operator should be up to par with the hazards they're going to be subjected to in their unit. So yes, I would absolutely love to have that training, to be a part of that EMT.
That's great. Now, what would you do if you see a coworker doing something unsafe?
Again, stop work authority. My safety culture, what I believe in safety, is if anybody is doing something unsafe or is about to do something unsafe, I would stop them as if I were doing it. I would hope that someone would stop me as well. I've stopped a lot of people. I've been stopped before just being complacent and being in the line of fire, and had someone stop me and say, hey, that might not be the safest way to do that. And then once realizing what I was doing, be able to stop, regroup, get the right tools, or change position if I needed to complete the task. And anybody that I've used stop work authority on has also had a very positive feedback and approach to that situation.
How would you handle it if you used your stop work authority and that person ignored you and continued anyway?
For situations like that, I follow procedure. and I follow chain of command. So I'm immediately going to, hey, let's wait. Can we get the foreman involved? Can I get the supervisor involved? Whichever may be the next person in line, so that we can stop and talk about the situation. And if we can proceed and everything is safe, then we've only lost a few minutes, instead of the alternative where we proceed and there might be a incident where we have somebody getting injured or worse.
Okay, and if that person is your supervisor, the next in your chain of command that is doing the unsafe work, how would you handle that?
Again, I value my safety culture, and I was raised like safety has no titles. At the end of the day, we're all our brother's keeper, our sister's keeper, and if I'm in work with somebody and I'm have a moment where I'm just not thinking and I'm about to do something unsafe, I would hope that my helper wouldn't be afraid to stop and approach me and tell me that. So that with that same mentality, I would still approach my supervisor, and I would still follow chain of command and follow facility policy on how to handle that situation.
Okay, thank you. In this industry, there are a lot of instances where you might have to work in heights. Are you afraid of heights, and are you able to work in those conditions?
I am not afraid of heights. And for example, I know that I'm not afraid of heights because I've been, as a scaffold carpenter, I've been at extreme heights. I've built scaffolds at 300 plus feet, and had no issues at all with being able to perform at those heights under those conditions.
Thank you. And would you consider yourself more of a leader or a follower?
I like to say that I'm both. It really depends on the situation. I think that that everybody should be able to adapt to any situation. If I'm the most knowledgeable one in the group, and I have the most experience, and I have a group of people that are looking for me to lead, I have no problem leading. But if we're in a situation that I don't have a lot of experience in, and if there's someone, even if they're below me, that does, I have no problem taking a follower position and letting them take the lead. Not only will it be conducive for the success of the entire group, but we're going to be able to accomplish the task safely and complete it on time because I'm letting someone lead that has way more experience and way more knowledge and that maybe has done this before. So I can do both. It just depends on the situation.
So why do you want to come into this job? What do you expect to get out of this position?
My expectations. So I got into P-Tech for the money. That's how it initially started. But to be honest, I've always had a driven curiosity about physics or about how things work. So that is really what drives me, is my search for knowledge. I absolutely want to know how these things operate, and I find it completely fascinating. But besides that, Citgo as a company and as a facility, I looked at the long range, being commissioned in the 40s and being sustainable, and the growth rate. The facility itself started out with around 50,000 barrels per day of production, and now we're at 475,000. That tells me that throughout the history of Citgo that we've evolved and we have constantly pushed forward. So that, along with the reputation, there's a lot of good things that are said about Citgo: the pay, the benefits, the people. So as a whole, I've got into the P-Tech program. I realized that I'm very passionate about this program and that I want to be an operator. And then the next thing that I looked at was, well, where would I want to be an operator at? So I picked, my top 3 facilities, and Citgo is one of my top 3 facilities. And I take a lot of pride in my work in school, and I want to work for a facility that's going to offer opportunity for me to grow in this industry and then be a part of the success of Citgo and become an asset.
Great. If you're talking about being an asset for our company, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
That's a great question. I'm very goal oriented. So like one of my goals was to graduate. Another goal past obtaining this degree was to be able to have the opportunity to come and interview at the places that I wanted to interview at. So this is definitely one of those times where I get to check off one of those boxes. For my 5-year plan, now that's all off of me getting the job and being a part of this company. But if that were to happen, if y'all were to make me an offer and I were to accept, I see myself hiring in and training and becoming an operator and moving up through the proper ranks within Citgo.
Thank you, Finn. And do you have any questions for us?
Yes. Well, I understand that y'all are a union facility. So my first question, if y'all can answer this, is when's the next union contract coming up? And when's the last time that y'all have went on strike? That'd be 2 questions that I asked. Okay. Safety record. When. So can you tell me when? What is y'all safety record? What is y'all's? Are there any future projects? Is there any expansion? What else is coming down the pipeline that might include me? How can I get involved? Is there going to be more opportunities down the line? So anything along, right, this is y'all's career. This isn't the job that you're worried about tomorrow. This is the job that you're worried about 30 years from now, right? And what all that includes. Because I don't want to bounce around. I want to get in, learn my unit, learn my job, and be set for the next 40 years. If you're looking at 40 years of service, right, that's kind of what you want to be at, a great facility that's offering great pay and benefits and that you can learn and you can master.